The line shuffled forward in the crowded terminal. Ordinary. Forgettable. She adjusted her bag, eyes down, just another traveler waiting her turn. But then it happened. A sharp intake of breath, boots clicking against the tile, and a decorated general froze in his tracks. His eyes locked on hers, not with confusion but recognition. And then, in a voice that carried across the silence, he called out a name no one else in that room should have known. Spectre. The line was slow, the kind of drag that makes you check the clock every 30 seconds even though you know it hasn't moved. Families shifted their bags. Businessmen scrolled on their phones. She stood quietly, just another traveler, blending into the rhythm of the crowd. Her hands were steady, her breathing calm. To anyone else, she was a woman on an ordinary day. But beneath that calm surface, she had mastered the art of being invisible. Years of practice had taught her how to disappear in plain sight. And then it shattered. Boots echoed down the terminal. Not the casual stride of a passenger, but the sharp, commanding steps of someone used to being obeyed. A general, uniform pressed, medals gleaming, walked past with 2 aides trailing behind. At first she didn't notice. She kept her gaze low, inching forward with the line. But the sound of his steps slowed, then stopped. Silence spread like a ripple. The general turned. His eyes, sharp and unyielding, scanned the crowd until they landed on her. For a heartbeat, she thought maybe he was just looking through her, the way people glance past strangers. But then his lips parted. Spectre. The word cut through the air, heavy and unmistakable. It wasn't a name anyone in this line should have recognized. It wasn't even a name anymore. It was a code. A ghost from a life she had buried. Heads turned. A mother hushed her child. A man raised an eyebrow at the strange word. But for her, the world seemed to tilt. She froze. Not visibly, not in a way anyone else would notice. But inside, her pulse hammered against her ribs. She hadn't heard that name in years. She hadn't expected to hear it again. Ever. The general's stare didn't waver. He knew exactly who she was. The weight of recognition pressed down, threatening to crush the carefully built walls of her new life. For a moment time stretched. She considered denying it, pretending she hadn't heard. Just another woman, caught in the confusion of a stranger's mistake. But deep down she knew the truth. That word wasn't spoken by accident. It was deliberate. It was personal. And it meant only one thing: her past had just found her. The name hung in the air, but to her it echoed like thunder. Spectre. She swallowed hard, forcing her expression to remain blank. The line shuffled forward again, but her mind wasn't in that terminal anymore. It was somewhere else, somewhere darker. She remembered the first time she'd heard the word. It wasn't in a crowded civilian terminal. It was whispered through a headset in the middle of the night, while rain pounded against metal rooftops and shadows moved across a foreign city. Spectre, you're green. Move. Back then, it wasn't just a name. It was a mask, a role. She had been trained to infiltrate where others couldn't, to vanish before anyone knew she was there. She didn't just complete missions. She erased them. No footprint. No trace. Every operative had a code name, but Spectre had been chosen for her because she was untouchable. A ghost. The kind of presence you'd swear you saw out of the corner of your eye, but never catch head-on. And yet, ghosts always leave cold air in their wake. The memories sharpened. Faces, orders, moments she had locked away. A mission that had gone too far. A decision she couldn't undo. And then silence. The kind of silence that comes when someone disappears not just from the battlefield, but from the records. That was the deal. That was her way out. She had walked away, stripped off the uniform, and buried Spectre with it. New name, new life. No trace. Until now. Her eyes flicked back to the general, still watching her. He wasn't mistaken. He wasn't confused. That single word had been aimed at her like a bullet. And the worst part? If he knew, then others might too. She adjusted her bag, her fingers tightening around the strap. Every instinct screamed at her to leave, to vanish before anyone else noticed. But her body stayed rooted. Because one thought pushed through the flood of memory. Why now? Why, after all these years, had her code name resurfaced? And why did the man who spoke it, the general himself, look less like he had stumbled across an old comrade and more like he had just found the missing piece of a long unsolved puzzle? Her pulse steadied, her training seeping back in like muscle memory. If the past was reaching for her, she had two choices: run again, or confront it. For the first time in years, she wasn't sure which one terrified her more. The line moved forward, but she barely noticed. All she could feel was the weight of his eyes locked on her. The general hadn't spoken again. He didn't need to. One word had already pulled the ground out from beneath her. Spectre. Her stomach tightened. People in the line shifted uncomfortably, sensing tension without understanding it. A few curious glances lingered, but no one dared speak. For them, it was nothing but a passing oddity. For her, it was the cracking of a sealed vault. She forced herself to breathe evenly. Inhale, exhale. Every movement deliberate, every detail calculated. That was the only way to stay in control. But then he stepped closer. "Spectre," he said again, quieter this time, almost like a test. His voice carried authority, but beneath it, there was something else. Recognition. Maybe even relief. She tilted her head just enough to meet his gaze. For the first time in years, she let her eyes show what her lips wouldn't. Warning, caution. The silent plea to let this moment pass. But generals don't ignore ghosts. They hunt them. Memories pressed harder now, clawing at the edges of her composure. A mission in the desert. An extraction that turned into a massacre. A choice she'd made to save one life at the cost of many. And then the silence. The vanishing act. Her escape. Was that why he was here? To drag her back into that world? To call her to account for choices no one was ever supposed to know she made? Her chest ached, but she didn't let it show. The aide beside him leaned in, whispering something. The general didn't move. His stare only deepened. Finally, she broke the silence. Not with words, but with a decision. She turned. Not toward the exit, not toward safety, but toward him. One step forward. A deliberate act. The crowd didn't understand, but they felt the shift. A ripple of unease spread as two worlds collided. The one she had built carefully in anonymity, and the one she had buried beneath classified reports and forgotten missions. Her voice, when it came, was calm, steady, almost unremarkable. "You must be mistaken," she said softly. But the words weren't a denial. They were a test, just like his had been. The general's lips curved, not in a smile, but in the faintest trace of triumph. "No mistake," he replied. "We've been looking for you." The sound of it sent a chill through her. This wasn't chance. This wasn't coincidence. It was deliberate, calculated. Her past hadn't just found her. It had come for her. The crowd shifted forward again. Ordinary travelers in an ordinary line. But for her, the world would never be ordinary again. And for the first time in years, she realized something terrifying. Ghosts don't stay buried. They rise when you least expect them.